and welcome to the presentation of the PMAD program. The word PMAD stands for Playing Music After Deafness, or PMAD. This program is a music rehabilitation program for musicians that have lost their hearing and wish to return to play their instrument. These sort of musicians cannot pitch a note anymore. They're not capable of perceiving intervals in music correctly anymore, therefore they can't play the instrument. And guess what? I'm one of those musicians. And in order to return to play music again, I wrote my own personal program. So before we get into that, I will start telling you about my deafness, what I use, and so forth, and then we'll slowly and gradually move through this presentation. This is actually the introduction part of the program. I call it the introduction because the program itself, which is divided in 4 different parts, you got individual sort of presentation of each part of this program. So let's continue here. Let's talk about my deafness. Look, I suffer with many years since 1980 to the left ear, on and off, and then practically by 2005, having surgeries to the left ear and so forth, things became really, really bad. In 2009, I reached the so-called stage of high drops attacks. This is when you actually black out. So, unfortunately, due to these sort of manias, my left ear had to be destroyed, including the balance mechanism. And I was fine for a number of years after that. I was just functioning with 1 ear, which is my right ear. Then all of a sudden, in 2015, January, as I was doing my morning walk, I lost my hearing to my right ear as well. I was diagnosed with manias in a bilateral form. I was given a hearing aid to try to cope, but I was practically useless. I was mostly deaf all the times, as a mania was sort of progressing and destroying, the ear, because it sort of was fluctuating, coming and going all the time. And finally, I had this cochlear implant to my left ear, and this cochlear implant was, just a godsend. I call it an absolute gift of medical science, right? The cochlear implant changed completely my life. In 2016, when I received this cochlear implant, I went through the initial stages of rehabilitation, 3 months. And then 3 months after that, I was told that I actually reached the criteria for a second implant. Why? Because I'm profoundly deaf in this ear. The only thing that's going to help me is a cochlear implant. However, I was given a hearing aid. This is the hearing aid that I used to have during 2015. I modified a little bit to help me out, but practically I was using what is called the process of bimodal hearing or binaural hearing, which means stimulating the brain on both sides and hearing from both sides. That's what this little hearing aid does. It picks up the sounds. The sound goes through it's obviously amplified greatly because, look, there's hardly anything left in this ear. If I take the hearing aid off without a cochlear implant, you need to scream in front of my face for me to pick up a few words. With the hearing aid on alone, I couldn't even drive, little alone to try to have a conversation, forget about playing music, of course. And so the cochlear implant is the foundation of hearing. But what happens is that when I have the hearing aid on, the cochlear implant side works so well. All of a sudden, there's so much quality of tones, tonalities, chords, volume, and so forth. When I take the hearing aid off, unfortunately, it's not quite, the same. So there is a difference in having this bimodal sort of process going. It really makes a difference, and this hearing aid is helping for that. Make no mistake, I will have a second implant. I know that this tiny little bit of hearing which is left in my right ear practically is, will go away. It's just the way the disease is. It's not gone. You see, many years, once you have it, you got it. You just don't know the way it works, how fast it progresses and whatever. But having said all that, I'm ready for it because I love my cochlear implant. And I will have it without any sort of hesitation whatsoever. But for the time being, it's doing the work. Now, I wanted to rehabilitate the music. They told me, look, in your conditions, you're profoundly deaf in the right ear, cochlear implant in the other. Cochlear implants are not great, with music, all these things, blah, blah. But I thought, hang on a second, there are these beautiful children which I watch on YouTube all the time that making miracles. Imagine these kids who were born deaf, never heard the sound of a musical frequency, and now they're playing, they're making miracles practically. And I was so encouraged, by these kids, so stimulated, by their efforts and everything that they do, that I said to myself, well, if these little angels can do that, what can I do with all of my years of playing experience and everything else? And so I decided that I have to give it a go, right? The first thing that I did, I eliminated my classical guitar, which I've been playing for the last 30 years. It was just hopeless. And then slowly and gradually, I decided to sort of have a go at my electric guitars with amplification, purely simply in a sort of acoustic way, using a jet arch top, which is my Gibson L4 CS, with amplification resolved. And so I started to put into place all sorts of different exercises. You see, I have read that the brain, and mind you, I call it the brain because everything functions from there, right? So the brain has the ability of storing so much information, including music or musical information. So not only the theory and the practical ability and all that, but also all these sounds that have been stored. You see, I know what a chromatic scale sounds like. I know what a standard scale, even an altered scale sounds like. I can sing them in my mind without actually sound coming from my voice. So my idea was to be able to correct the frequencies that sort of come incorrectly from my sick ear, okay, and of course by cochlear implant. The people says the cochlear implant are not great for music sounds, but are they really? Because the only reason for which I'm playing is my cochlear implant. Without it, it would be totally impossible. So to me, they do a great job. As simple as that. And so I started putting into practice all sorts of technical exercises. Slowly and gradually, my pitch was coming back one note at a time until I covered the entire fretboard. Then I was able to play scales. Then I moved into the first trichords. Then from there, more complex chords. And then also scales and, of course, arpeggios on the chords. By the time I was ready to do that, I was now able to play the first pieces. And as I was doing the first pieces, I was also starting to tackle material that I never played before in the polyphonic one and all the rest. So I knew I was on something out of the ordinary. It's not something that I could hold back. I had to spread it. I had to release it. So I had to write a program and show it to other musicians that, look, there are opportunities if you're prepared to make changes, prepared to work hard, if you have all the tools, that are required to sort of do things, to move forward. And that goes from practical ability, theory and knowledge, and of course, and then instrumentation and this and that. And so I started to write this program, and this program practically it became, the PMAD program. Now, I was not able to write it into one book. It was physically impossible to write it as one book. It's written in 4 different parts. There is actually also an additional part which is called work in progress. So in few words, you need to move across the 4 different parts of the program. The parts are the preface, first part, second part is called research, third is called jazz harmony, and the fourth one is called recording your music. Let's leave the recording of music, this is the last part, but the 3 parts of the study and the actual rehabilitation are, as I said, preface, research, and the jazz harmony. Now, what you do practically, you will be moving across these 3 different parts. Why? Because you need to sort of start understanding the type of exercises which you will do on the preface. And the actual beginning of the preface talks about the ears a little bit, talks about the cochlear implant, the hearing aids. Mind you, I'm not qualified to sort of dwell on this. I'm not an audiologist, but I've done a lot of reading in order for me to try to find out what was actually going to work or not. I had to inform myself, how does a cochlear implant work? How does the hearing aids, work? What does it do? And so forth. So practically there's a little bit of information. And then, as I say, we move straight into the technical work. But in order to get into the technical work, you need to have the right instrument. So from there, you move in the research. The researcher tells you which is the most appropriate instrument, because frequencies, every acoustic instrument's got different sound, and there is an entire information there about the right equipment. And then, of course, if you're going to do technical work, you're not just going to do technical work, you have to apply your theory, okay? And so you are required to know the fundamentals of jazz harmony, and I'm just talking about simply chords, scales, everything that has to do with the foundation of a small piece played sort of polyphonically. You need to know how to use chords to harmonize, your melody if you're going to be playing solo, right? So these three parts of the program work together, and you need all three in order to be able to progress and go forward. The fourth part is something else, and that is recording your music. So if you've done so great, and I hope you do, you might want to record yourself. And if you do that, well, I hope that you have a great friend, as I have, by the name of Paolo Tagliano. He's a professional guitarist, professional teacher. He knows tons about recording things. He's got heaps of experience and all the rest. And he was really a great friend. He helped me out to start all this when I was out of solutions. Really, there are no courses for deaf people to become sound engineers, right? So we work on solutions. We're trying to find how I could actually start to record, and we created templates for each guitar, this and that. That never really worked because of dynamics and other things, but nevertheless was extremely important, for me to start all that. And then I have to do tons of studies online and find out all about the equipment, that wasn't necessary, purchase it, go through tons of trials, and all the information to what to do and what to use is actually in the program. And Paolo also was fundamental about creating the final section, which is called an MP4, which is video music file. And he has a very simple sort of process, that goes into play. That was fantastic. I was able to achieve that, which was really a dream, for me, right? But yet, thanks to Paul, I really was able, or Paolo, I should call it. It's not Paul, it's Paolo. Paolo Tagliano, my very best friend, I was able, to do this. And yes, and it's there. You can actually see me online. There is a number of videos, which you can see me play, and it's all there for you. So if I am profoundly deaf in my right ear and totally deaf in the other one, you need to sort of ask yourself, what can you do? All right, you need to sort of compare yourself and really understand where are your limits. And really, if you're stuck in the corner just concentrating about your limits, you're not going to concentrate on your opportunities. That's why I say to you, Cochlear Implants work. Look at the opportunity to what you can create if you just sort of have the right tools, the right information, and you want to work hard and do everything it takes, including getting headaches. Okay, because you will get in the initial state, there's so much strain of work and all that, but it does get better. All right. So now you have the information about my deafness. You're starting to understand about the program, okay, which you will need to follow all in each individual presentation. Please, it's most important, okay? This program is not refundable, which means that when you purchase it, it's yours. Why? It's in a PFD file. It's got all sorts of information there. So once that is out, it's yours, okay? So you need to make that decision. And that commitment is not just about spending the money, which is very reasonable, and I made it extremely affordable, but it's about the commitment, the time that you're going, effort that you're going to put in to study, and of course, the purchasing of different equipment and stuff like that, which is necessary in order to do the job. So now that I think we need to establish some credibility, Okay, so you say, you're probably asking yourself, or say, okay, Massimo, you're telling us that you're able to do this, you got these videos, or this and that, whatever, but how were you able to do that? What is the story about your music education? What have you done? How were you able to do all this, right? So I'll try to talk about myself as little as possible, but I need to start from the very beginning. So I was born in 1950. My dream was to study the classical guitar. This is around 1964. I was trying to enter the conservatory in Santa Cecilia. It was mission impossible. Practically, the entrance level was 11 years of age. I was too late. So I started a band with my best friend, and we're still very, very good friends and write to each other. His name is Luigi Massari. We started a band called Visconti, and we started to play around, the clubs, and we did fantastically well. And then we also, collaborated with Maestro Giuliano Sorgini to do his album, Andar Pompelmo, and that was incredible, for us to work in a studio of the Rai studio in Rome, and we were so young, we had no experience, no idea about music. We were earplugs, but fantastic experience. So at the same time, I was studying engineering at the Institute of Technology Enrico Fermi. Unfortunately, my father passed away when I completed my studies, and with my family, we, which was my mother, my young sister, we moved to Australia, to Melbourne. So we left Rome and we went to Melbourne. Once I got to Melbourne, I ran to join the band, and when I joined a bunch of English boys, and wow, we were loud, and I could not take the loudness, as simple as that. We were playing around clubs, pubs, all these places, and the music was so really impossible. I had huge tinnitus after every gig, and it was really, really terrible. I decided I have to study music. I wanted to get out from that scene. I wanted to play music that I love, Latin America, jazz music, movies, sort of pieces, from movies, themes, sort of stuff like that, which I love. I was listening to all the time. And so I started to study the guitar. There was two teachers, fundamental, in relation to contemporary music. One was Mr. Ray Smith, which is a great friend of mine. He's a fantastic human being, fantastic teacher. With Ray, Ray needs no introduction from me. He's so well known around Melbourne. And with Ray, I started to learn how to read music. I was playing different music now. I was able to sort of, work in complete different ways, and I was ready to write charts. In fact, in order to write charts properly and play some of the polyphonic studies that I did with Ray Smith, I also started to study at the same time with Mr. Frank Strangio. This is another great musician, composer that studied at Berklee University in Boston, and at the time, this is late 70s, early 80s, he was available for lessons in jazz harmony, and those lessons were incredible. So practically studying sort of the guitar with Ray Smith and studying the so-called jazz harmony with Frank Strangio, I was now able to tackle music. I was backing up shows, I was running my own charts, I was taking music for records, I was transposing, doing all sorts of things. All the things that I was not able to do before. So my life as a musician changed, right? So I even went for 2 years. I started to play, full-time, 7 nights a week, but it was not for me. I decided that it wasn't for me. But those two teachers were incredible in my life, okay? So thank you so much, Ray Smith and Frank, of course, very good friends of mine, not just my teachers, really, they've been just phenomenal. And so as I said, I tried to work, for 2 years, but I didn't like, the lifestyle. So 7 nights a week, I would never see my family. I had young children, stuff like that. So I started a career in sales and marketing, which I did my entire life after that. I actually, retired in 2007 as a national sales and marketing manager. So I continue to sort of work and continue to study, because there was another study online, and that was my study on the classical guitar. And I started to sort of take lessons from Susanne Ellis from Melbourne. What a fantastic teacher. She's the daughter of Bill May from Mayton Guitarist, a student of Aliro Diaz. He's a Venezuelan student, and of course, a student of the great Segovia, Andrea Segovia, and of course, Sadie Bishop of Melbourne. She studied also with Sadie Bishop. She was also a student of Andrea Segovia. Fantastic. Sort of musicians. Really, you can't really get much better. And of course, the Sadie Bishop is also connected to the Williams families. I'm talking John Williams here, right? So Susan was just phenomenal. I didn't just learn the guitar, the different periods, the technique, all that, but I learned about diligence. I learned about details. I learned about the difference between playing a piece and performing a piece, correctly. Extremely, extremely important, for a musician. So Susan Ellis was really fundamental in my music life as a musician, all right? And of course, I was also teachers in harmony or classical harmony, because you cannot sit for practical exams in classical guitar unless you study classical harmony as well. So the three teachers that have been so big in my life, of course, have been Ray Smith, Frank Strangio, and Susan Ellis, classical guitar, and so forth. I studied, with Susan until 1997. This is when things changed, for me. Okay, practically, I had my first neck surgery. I had a cervical spine surgery. I had to leave the band that I was working constantly every Saturday and Sunday as a weekend warrior, doing all corporate functions, backing up shows. Really big gigs and all that kind of stuff, and I had to leave all that. I just couldn't do it anymore. I had the job was very, very important. Was very, let's say, demanding, flying around the country, all the stuff. And so at the end of the day, I needed to make some decisions. So I got all the way to grade 9 classical guitar, and grade 6 with the theory and harmony, and have to leave the band. The years follows were sort of okay, but not really great either, because by 2005, after more surgeries to the neck, more surgeries to the left ear, and then finally I went straight into many ears. And then because I told you before that in 2009 my ear was actually destroyed and so forth. So my deafness and where it is. But having had the 2 spinal surgeries has actually affected my life in general. I've been left with chronic pain, which I deal on a daily basis, and with exercise and all that. But I'm doing well. I'm not complaining. But with the years, there was this major changes, because, as you know, I became completely deaf to the left ear, and almost totally deaf with the right ear. So as I'm talking to you, I'm also looking at this program. There is not much more, that I can tell you about the actual introduction. Practically, you need to understand what is involved, and in all this, you need to understand the commitment that you need to make. It is taking me years to put it, together. Of course, COVID had a huge influence in this, because everything stopped. In Melbourne, we were in lockdown for more than 12, 14 months, and then all the restrictions. That's why it took me so long to do the part, which was how to learn how to record and so forth. But it was finally sort of put together. I'm getting better in this. My rush now was trying to put these out, to make sure that it reaches you, and it spread, and it does what it's supposed to do, and that it's going to help you. So again, you need to, and it's most important that you do lots of comparison. You need to compare your deafness. What I'm wearing. I'm not qualified to talk about any different type of hearing, assistive units, and I'm talking about different type of hearing aids or things or whatever it is that you use. I could only talk about the things that I use, to return to the music, and I believe these are also the most common out there. Cochlear implants becoming so sort of well known, and of course it's been around for more than 40 years, and so forth. And I could only talk about this. I hope I gave you enough information in these introductions, particularly as you know about my music education. That tells you how I was able to write all this. Otherwise, there was no hope, period. And my encouragement, it is for you to enter this study with the mind that you're going to be playing solo. Okay, the idea of going into big stages with sounds and heavy volumes and information from other instruments and all the rest. That is a challenge that I'm not promoting. I don't believe that is actually possible. I live within the limits of my deafness. You need to read between this statement. It's between little comments here. Within the limits of my deafness, I have done extremely well. I can now take a certain amount of volume enough to be able to record and do this. As you can see, I can play, but still to go on a stage with other instruments and all the rest would be mission impossible. I just could not do that. I cannot enjoy a concert anymore. I cannot do these things. It need to be a very quiet type of performance. That could be a classical guitar type of performance. So something that in an acoustic way, or if it's done electrically in a very, very soft way. That's why I talk also in a research about the gear that can be used to do that and how to actually do that. But remember that sound, volume, all these things affect tremendously your ability to perceive, correctly notations, okay? And because sound changes from all the different units, from tiny little speakers to wide G speakers, the frequency change, and the challenges is enormous. That's why the right gear, is extremely important knowledge, okay? So, in a nutshell, that's all there is in this introduction. I hope you have enjoyed listening to it, and I hope that you will give this program a chance. That's all it is. It is an opportunity. Remember, I am not giving of false hopes here. This program is not a magic pill. This program is designed to work. It has worked for me. About my deafness. You can see me playing. It's all real. There's no secrets or anything about it. This information is going worldwide. This is also reaching my audiologists, the company that is responsible for my Cochlear brands and all that. This is going all the way, and all these people, they all know about the level of my deafness. Look, I thank you so much for watching. You have watched the introduction of the PMAD program, which is Applying Music After Deafness, a rehabilitation program for musicians that are lost their hearing and wish to return to the music. My name is Massimo Tonson Latour, and I hope to see you for the presentation of the program itself, okay, the 4 different parts. Thank you so much for watching, and bye for now.